that kind of time. So we are getting into game number 1. Alb is going to be trying to get that win with his Paladin, which, as you mentioned, probably the weak link of his lineup here in this matchup.
Yeah, that's right. The Paladin, of course, will be great against the Priest, but we'll definitely see Control stay away from that Priest as long as possible to give himself as much edge by starting off with Druid. His favorite deck, the aggressive token egg-based Druid, which has largely transitioned actually away from the eggs itself. I know people used to play Soul of the Forest, the Rubian eggs, and try to buff even some dragon eggs back in the day. Has largely transitioned to more of a token-based style, more dependent on things like the Living Mana and Savage Roar as opposed to some other stuff.
Yeah, one of the big cards that really separates the token Druid deck in Wild from the version in Standard is Jeeves. It's a card that gives you incredible refill power later on in the game. Not a card that's in Control's opening hand, but he does have a couple of Wild-specific cards. The Dragon Egg, as you mentioned, the Egg Druid namesake, as well as a Haunted Creeper, which give him a lot of resilience against removal, which is one thing that's very important for a deck that has board-wide buffs that it's trying to get on its board.
Yeah, this is the challenge that the Paladin deck really has with aggressive decks. If it doesn't get that early Lost in Jungle, if it doesn't have that Shielded Minibot or Muster for battle, how does it fight back in time when you're holding a bunch of situational cards like Lightfuse Stegodon, Equality? Alb has the hero power. A single Power of the Wild on Markelos will blow this game wide open for Control. He picks up Power of the Wild, and that is going to be bad news bears for Alb.
Yeah, Control almost goes to immediately play the Power of the Wild. Takes his time though, steps back for a moment, thinking maybe it's better for him to get down the Haunted Creeper first, get a more AoE resilient board. But Power of the Wild here specifically is powerful because of Dragon Egg. Being able to buff this Dragon Egg means that he'll be able to get an additional minion from the Egg's trigger. He's actually going to go ahead and Galaka Crawler his own Pirate. Here he's playing around the possibility of a Muster for Battle coming out and wants to just get a single big minion down. This is an interesting choice from Control.
Wow. Well, it ends up working out great because I think Control realizes he has so many one-mana minions in his deck that Power of the Wild ends up buffing it. His previous play was sort of a hedge around whatever his opponent could be playing on turn 3, Muster for Battle being one of them, or if his opponent sets up for a Consecration in future turns. But they're still kind of vulnerable either way.
This does set his board resilient to both Consecration and True Silver Champion because it gives him a minion that survives just a True Silver Champion hitting on the single big buff minion, as well as the 2/1 dragon that survives out of the egg. And he's just going to reload again. There's only 2 Consecrations in your deck, and Control's just going to keep the pressure on. And with that Savage Roar in his hand, this damage is all adding up very quickly.
Yeah, there are some defensive tools
like
available.
Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. That draw from Alb is pretty powerful because he can use that to potentially prevent a lot of damage from a Savage Roar coming through.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about shutting down Savage Roar possibilities here. And, Wicker Flame, when there's so many 3 health minions on the board, is not necessarily very strong.
Ooh, Innervate the draw for Control. It's actually a card that he wasn't playing in his aggressive Druid decks for quite a while for exactly this kind of reason, that if you draw it in the middle stages of the game, anywhere except your opening hand pretty much, it can be basically a dead draw, and that's what it is here for Control. He's going to have to essentially win with what he has right now, and he's pushing quite a bit of damage, but as you mentioned last turn, that Wicker Flame Burn Bristle might be enough to turn the tide for Alb here.
Maybe. I mean, there's also the possibility of another Living Roots coming into the hand. Alb going to try to do his best here, stay alive with 2 HP. Control, what do you got off the top of your deck here to really try and end this game before Alb can swing it around? Because he's got some really powerful stuff coming up.
Yeah, that's Living Mana. Oh, that actually gives Control potentially a use for his Innervate, by the way. He can Innervate Hero Power and then Living Mana, so he's able to punch through with his minions and actually clear off Alb's board or get a damage in. I would imagine he's probably going to kill the Recruit against this deck.
Yeah, and that allows him to get the full summon of 6 tokens as well, because if he had to trade in his minions and play Living Mana without Innervate, he'd lose a 2/2 token, which is not what you want to see.
Control taking his time here, though, trying to figure out exactly how he wants to maneuver this. He's very expressive. We see him counting on his hands there. We saw him sort of swaying his head, rolling his eyes back and forth. Clearly his thinking face.
Yeah, and we do want to mention that these guys are sitting very close in proximity, so no one's really taking advantage of that. No one's really looked up to see what the other person is motioning, but Control can be read a little bit, so I would warn him to be a little cautious about mouthing too much stuff. Yeah. You keep counting certain numbers out loud. Maybe your opponent sees what you're mouthing and maybe catch on to it.
You get the Pavel stare down. May give out some information there, but all right, it is Servant of Darkshire, and Lifeforge Stegadon can give 1 minion taunt, but that's not going to be enough to survive against a board of Mana Treants, and Control takes that game number 1 against Alb's Paladin deck.
Yeah, Aggro Druid was pretty much favored against everything except the Mirror as well, so that was a second candidate for ban if they weren't going to ban Shaman. And that kind of makes sense there for Control, getting a very important game number 1 victory, because as we've seen today, a lot of the favorable matchups haven't fallen the way of certain players.
Yeah, and this is, as you mentioned, Alb really going to need to work to get a win with this Paladin deck. He does have some text against the Pirate Warrior. He has 2 copies of Galactic Crawler in his deck, as well as the Wicker Flame Burn Bristle we saw that game. So he's going to need things to go line up well for him to get through the aggressive lineup with this deck.
Yeah, Alb does have a good matchup against Priest. Paladin can do a really good job not only stifling the Priest development, but because he has equalities into his deck as well. It might be a struggle for Control to establish any kind of semblance of board if he holds on to that equality. But you did mention something really important here. Control, Pirate Warrior on paper is pretty good against the Recruit Paladin, but with the Galactic Crawlers, it evens out a lot more, especially if he has 2 of them in his deck. Maybe this is an opportunity for Alb to swing back the series in his favor.
Yeah, see, definitely deep in thought, figuring out exactly what's going on. All right, we're getting into the next game. We heard Tyrande versus the Adrins, so that is going to be Priest versus Paladin. And as you mentioned, this is one of the good matchups for the Paladin.
Yeah, at least the only good one on paper for the Paladin, which meanwhile, Control actually has a very similar position in that his Priest doesn't have many good matchups, but the one matchup that the Priest is good against is Aggressive Druid, primarily because it has Pyromancer and a few of these other ways to deal with all those big board builders.
In this matchup, it's important to note this isn't a typical style of controlling Priest. He is playing a combo version of Priest, looking to end the game with Divine Spirit Interfire, or with just getting a large Death Lord, protecting that, keeping it alive. There's a Divine Spirit, but he does have the Death Lord as well, and there's currently no equality for Alb. And the Pyromancer here for Control on turn 2, I think really shows the style of deck he's playing. A lot of times you're playing Control Priest, you want to hold back that Pyromancer, use it as a removal effect, but Control wants to do exactly the opposite and actually just end the game with it as quickly as possible before equalities get online for his big minions.
Yeah, and I mean, Control still has a couple turns here before even the threat of Terran. So let's see how he's able to capitalize onto this. I love using one circle of healing here and an Auchenai to build your board against the Paladin. Stifle his development, and of course you have a backup Auchenai circle, which of course would just be a very reactive hold for most Priest decks, but in this case, Control recognizes he needs to be the aggressor and take some risks here.
Yeah, he's hoping that there is no equality for Alb, and there is not. So Control has the board here. He's likely going to be using his minions and perhaps his hero power to clear some of these off. He could even commit this second circle to just clear this board, because the threat of Stegadon or a possible Quartermaster coming out and buffing these is pretty dramatic.
I like that. And squeezing in Divine Spirit before that so we can get the optimal amount of health onto it. Threaten Divine Spirit and start pushing 7 damage a turn. It's pretty relevant when you're trying to set up a way to pressure your opponent. Alb does have, a couple of things he can do, but it's looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah, and I really like the way that Control is maneuvering this game. Lots of players consider that don't really recognize what role they have in a given matchup, and Control definitely understands he is the aggressor. He needs to be putting the pressure on, right, and not just taking a reactive position. Zombie Chow, crucially for those who may not have played back when it was in Standard, it is a 5 damage burst card in combination with Auchenai Soul Priest. Right. So that is a very real threat that Control just picked up if he's able to keep getting more damage in.
However, Control's pressure is on the razor's edge. Alb, if he stabilizes even one time from this, because of how much Control's invested into this board, he will win. because of how much his resources would to outlast the priest. And Control needs to have at least 2 cards going off with each other in order to have some semblance of synergy. Alb still has independently very powerful cards like Spike Ridge Steed and whatever he picks up off his Stonehill Defender. Gravity Protector, not necessarily the Tyrion and Terran that you're looking for, but still a very fearsome thing to overcome.
Yeah, and crucially able to both use the Lost in the Jungle and his hero power here as well to make a board that can once again threaten with Stegodon. All right, Control's going to be using his hero power to dig a little bit.
Ooh,
find
man.
Shadow Visions.
This can be really big.
He does not find an Inner Fire, though, which is what he was looking for
Yep.
here to potentially get a huge burst damage in.
I kind of like either Power Word Shield or Leia the Naru. Leia the Naru also drew a card, but also summoned a minion. So it kind of does.
There's Inner Fire.
Wow.
So that could be 15. Oh, no, he doesn't. He's 1 mana short.
Yeah.
He can't use the Shattered Pain and the Inner Fire this turn, and I expect we'll see another clear here. He's been very much respecting the threat of Lightforge Stegodon. Rather, Lightfuse Stegodon, because a Lightfuse Stegodon generating a poisonous minion would deal with every single thing that every single bit of investment into that Death Lord. Consecration now ensures that the heal comes out from that Chow, and now Inner Fire is pretty far from being lethal, but is still a big chunk of damage if Control goes for it now.
Yeah, now Control, when he sees Alb holding on to so many cards, frantically trying to get recruits onto the board, I think he kind of understands what needs to happen here. He is going to go full out and try to just pressure his opponent for a 2-turn lethal. Alb needs to land Poisonous or Taunts. He does have another backup option here, or he can also just draw Tarim. Even Tyrion off the top wouldn't be that bad. He also has
Tyrion.
He has 2 Lightfuse Stegodon adapts, though.
All right, a Poisonous here. There's Poisonous. Poison Spit will take down the Death Lord, and this game is all but over at this point.
Alb needed. He has second chance to get it, but he's going to go ahead and play a second Lightfuse Stegodon just in case. Not to mention that whatever gets pulled out of the other side of the Death Lord would be
even more poisonous. Now, actually, the Death Rattle here means that Alb is going to have significant board development along with removing everything Control has here. And yeah, as we said, this is an aggro priest deck. It needs to end the game quickly. Velen's Chosen here is not even close to enough to get back into this game.
Yeah, assuming that the Discover chances were 3% both times, that'd be what, 51% of the time that doesn't happen? Or 49%, so it was pretty close to a 50% chance that Alb was able to hit Poisonous.
Specifically Poisonous.
Yeah, specifically
he could have even gotten like plus attack and plus attack, I think.
or Taunt to stall,
right.
Make sure 12 doesn't go through. So there's a lot of really good options here for Alb, as looks like he has been able to finally turn the tide here. And this was, again, a really important one because Priest should not be winning this matchup more often than not. Yeah,
and the Paladin, as we mentioned, is a key matchup for Alb to get through. His Paladin deck is weak to the other decks in Control's lineup.
Right.
So now he has his other more generally solid decks to go up against Control's other aggressive decks.
All right, so Alb able to take a game here with his Paladin, which was kind of important, you know. The Pirate Warrior, that was the best remaining matchup for Control. If he was able to get Pirate Warrior against Paladin, then he wouldn't have to worry about the Token Druid. Otherwise, he's stuck playing Pirate Warrior Mirrors, which we all know is extremely volatile and very opening hand dependent on having a weapon and stabilizing against your opponent's board.
All right, well, let's take a look at the deck that Control played in that game, which he will play again. His not Control Priest, despite the fact that it says that on the screen. This is Control's Priest deck, which is, in fact, a combo Priest. Uses Divine Spirit plus Inner Fire, most notably with Death Lord, which has such a high health for its low mana cost, as well as Akanai plus Circle. The Light of the Naru there is another potential burn card with the Akanai Soul Priest that can also draw cards with Cleric, as well as potentially help heal up your minions to get them into bigger Divine Spirit Inner Fire range.
Yeah, I actually really like this deck list, and specifically the fact that it has so many ways to not only pressure your opponent, but also deal with aggro. Like Zombie Chow is a combo piece for big burst. It's also a great anti-aggro tool, and when combo decks are great against aggro, you have Patient Warrior is a really good example. It has a ton of explosive potential because one of the big weaknesses of combo decks traditionally is pressure. You just don't let them ever get assembled combo pieces. Look at Rogue, for example.
Yeah,
but this deck kind of shores up all of it.
Yeah, we saw a lot of these cards together back when they were all in Standard as well, but you didn't typically see that much success in the Divine Spirit Interfire realm. A big sort of new piece of that is the Shadow Visions that was introduced in Journey to Angora, which enables you to find any individual part of whatever combo you're trying to put together that you might be missing.
This is already looking pretty bad here for Control. There's going to be a lot of uphill battles against Token Druid, but he does have a crazy potential opening here with Ship's Cannons and N'Zoth's First Mate. I love this hold. He recognizes that he needs a big swing if he's going to win an unfavorable matchup like this.
Yeah, a lot of people think of Pirate Warrior as a very sort of straightforward, very linear deck. Control believes that the deck is A, the strongest deck in the format, and B, much more interesting and more complicated than people give it credit for. Here, it's going to, as you mentioned, hold on to his cannon. Now, N'Zoth's First Mate plus patches, double cannon trigger, and the weapon gives him a lot of ability to clear off some of this board and get some damage in.
You know, and I wonder if Control even had an opportunity to hold even more. You know, he had another N'Zoth's First Mate to get another hit with the Ship's Cannon. Figures that he'd rather just go for the immediate board dominance. And now Alb is going to be able to kill off that final, that Ship's Cannon, and now potentially make a final push here to secure the board.
It's funny that we're talking about a final push and it's turn 3.
The game often does get to turn 3 because of the early game.
I'm not at all disagreeing with you, but it's just this is a pretty amusing thing to think about. This is the power level of a lot of these cards that exist in the Wild format, and now Control. He is facing down that Haunted Creeper with a buff, which is difficult to deal with in the first place, but also the threat of additional buffs on the spiders that will come out of it. And he doesn't have a great hand. The 2 Dread Corsairs would be very powerful if he had a larger weapon, but they're pretty inefficient right now, effectively iron for Grizzlies.
Yeah, he would have loved to see the Cultist in this position. Huh. And, you know, Alb, by utilizing his Innervate hero power, because now I also have noticed that his Power of the Wild was picked up, has kind of exposed himself to losing a little bit of the board. So actually, he's playing a lot slower and not really trying to secure the immediate board, maybe trying to play up the living mana in future turns. And with that Haunted Creeper pickup, I mean, that's, again, another big board for Control to deal with just a Rusty Hook. It's not going to be enough.
Yeah, and Pirate Warrior is great at doing... Ooh, there's the Fiery War Axe that he would have loved last turn. It's actually still good, though. He can War Axe down one of these and play 2 Blood Corsairs, which helps him get back in the board. There is, unfortunately for him, the living mana waiting in Alb's hand, but this does allow Control to at least stem the bleeding against the board that's there right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, he used 1 Corsair the previous turn, so he's going to be floating 1 mana if he ends up going for it. Maybe, does he want to play the N'Zoth's First Mate first? But then he would just have a 1/1 exposed. So it's just awkward. And a lot of times, because you try to go for an immediate play, wasn't able to invest into the future. And it would have been the same thing, too, if he picked up Death Spite. He would have been able to play double Dread Corsair there.
And Innervate is actually not horrible for Alb here, because if he does decide that he wants to trade and play the living mana this turn, he can do it. Yeah, I was actually just going to trade it on the board and keep the Innervate in his hand. Interesting.
Yeah, it gives him the ability to play a range of minions. All right, that's not a bad minion at all. Now you can upgrade the N'Zoth's First Mate weapon to have a lot of ability to clear the board, or you can upgrade your existing Fiery War Axe, but it doesn't allow you to put a Pirate on the board. Okay, so he wants to have more damage, but it doesn't get the 1/1 on the board, which...
Yeah, I'm actually not sure I like this play from Control here. He had the opportunity to swing with the War Axe, kill one of the Mana Treants, or I guess he just wants to go face.
Oh,
he could have set up the First Mate upgraded weapon. Maybe he doesn't feel like he has nearly enough time to try and play any kind of attrition.
Sure. I mean, Sato made a comment on this before. Pirate Warrior does want to control the board a lot of the times so that they can leverage their minion damage. But sometimes if you just keep trading against tokens, you're just not going to get there. So Alb does the same exact thing. He says, you got to get there against me. I'm pressuring for lethal here.
There's another upgrade. So he could potentially upgrade Heroic Strike face this turn, but Alb is at 23.
Not for long if he goes face.
It's true. It is true.
5, 9, so 12 damage. You can put him down to 11.
Yeah.
That's within striking distance of Leroy. Oh, no, but the Druid can hero power.
All right. Well,
it's gonna be a tight one, but it's looking like Alb just has to stay alive for this one push.
All right, down to 11 life.
Assuming he's not dead. If Alb picks up Savage Roar, it's over.
Bloodsuck Corsair. Oh.
He forgot to summon patches from the deck. A little bit too quick on the trigger there, but you know, fundamentally, he's still able to just push for the lethal here, as Control has almost no options at this point.
Yeah, Control had maybe a hope if he found Leroy or another damage source, and Alb did not trade or remove his weapon.
Yep.
But here, it looks like Control is perhaps just out of opportunities. Alb could potentially just trade in here now. As you mentioned, he did have a little bit of a misstep. If he does trade, then he lost the opportunity to bring patches out. Ship's Cannon, yeah, not going to do it. Control is, in fact, going to fall in this game and be down in a series for the first time in this tournament.
That's right. Token Druid ends up holding serve here, so everything is going as expected, which leaves Pirate Warrior remaining for Alb. And Control's best deck against that is his own Pirate Warrior. And you got to kind of wonder if because Control queued off of his Priest there, ends up because he brought his Priest, is that going to be what sabotages him? Because ultimately, what he'll have to win is Pirate Warrior with his Priest. That's going to be really tough to beat.
It can be tough. I haven't actually played a ton with this specific version of the combo Priest that Control is playing, but Pirate Warrior against any deck can be really brutal. We see Alb's version of the deck there on the screen, and the upgrades from Standard, you think that Pirate Warrior is a menace in Standard. The upgrades here are pretty significant. I'm not even talking about the card upgrade. We have a lot of confusion in words here. Control the player, control the archetype. But no, Ship's Cannon is the real superstar of the move to Wild. We saw a little bit of it in one of the previous games, but it can absolutely blow a game wide open, especially if you have a couple of cheap pirates and the coin. And Sir Finley Murgleton, we've also seen be an absolute all-star in a lot of these matchups as well, giving either life tap or steady shot to replace your armor up hero power.
There's a lot of small interactions that could have defined what that game was for a pivotal game 3. But we'll go ahead and move on to what could be the last game of this tournament. If Alb is able to win with that opening hand,
that
is looking
is
mighty
a
fine.
Powerful hand for Alb here.
Yeah.
Now, Control has the Northshire Cleric turn 1, chooses not to play it. This is a play that you might make if you're trying to play around the possibility of a coin into Fiery War Axe. Doesn't want to expose the Cleric, wants to ensure he gets card draw off of it later on. And, well, it is going to be a coin into Frothing Berserker here for Alb, it looks like. No, he's going with the cannon. Okay.
Yeah. If he didn't have the Bloodsail Cultist or the Captain, I probably would say the Frothing Berserker is better, but this is 4 damage immediately with the ship's cannon. Plus, you set up the weapon.
And look at his hand. He has Cultist, he has Captain, he has Upgrade. He has all the tools that he needs to really just put Control under tons of pressure. Pyromancer plus Powered Shield will clear off some of it, so it does make at least the Captain less threatening. But this also damages the Wild Pyromancer, and potential triggers of Ship's Cannon, if Captain came down, could be a real problem.
Trust the
Goes to the minions, protects the cannon. You see a shake of the head from Control. He knows that was big, and now his chance to get back into this game really relies on maybe even just Soul Priest Circle for a board clear, but he's under so much pressure already.
Man, it looks like he is reduced to just playing the Auchenai. Anything else is just a little bit of a weaker card. You can play the Valen's Chosen and the Northshire Cleric. That's also a pretty nice thing to do, but one of the nice things about the Auchenai as well is that it has the hero power that's very threatening, so it absorbs damage, and also can remove through the hero power. It's a very tricky situation.
Yeah, Control definitely taking his time here, trying to figure things out. I think I like the Cleric plus Velen's line here in particular. One of the big things about this is that your Soul Priest can have utility at various stages, and also the threat of playing Soul Priest and your opponent not killing it, and then you can't heal, and you just end up getting run over. All right, well, we have an upgrade for the weapon, now another upgrade for the weapon if he wants it, plus the triggers from the cannon here.
Yeah, I like this restraint from Alb. He has a Death Bite and double upgrade. No need to rush it, and this is kind of what we're talking about. The Priest can really struggle against a fast opening from the Pirate Warrior, and Alb looks like he's just a few turns away from closing this if Control can't do anything more besides this.
Acolyte Heal Yourself is not an answer to this board. Sir Finley for even more gas if Alb needs it. Frothing getting big, and this, again, is a combo Priest deck. It's not a Control deck. It doesn't have powerful tools to come back into games where it is dramatically far behind. Needs to get that damage in. Sir Finley finds Steady Shot, and the writing may, in fact, just be on the wall for this one.
What can Control even do without that Arcanized Circle? He is completely sitting duck. Four, 7, 9, 10, plus 6. Looks like he is 16 damage. Going to be very close to closing it out here. Control just going to try and load up as much power onto the board and see what he can do off the top of his deck. Wait, can Alb actually squeeze out a little bit more because Finley trades gives him actually additional damage? 6, 11, 13, 17. Looks like he's one off.
Just short.
One off.
I mean, he may be just off lethal here, but Control, he's used pretty much all of his resources and is not going to be able to get this Radiant through for nearly enough damage, I don't think. Alb is respecting it. He's thinking, okay, well, if there's another Divine Spirit, another Inner Fire here, if I don't remove this from the board, it could just kill me. So he's going to trade in, take a bunch of damage, but that's 11 from a Frothing Berserker and a lot more waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I think, I mean, he can reduce this Frothing Berserker down to just one attack, but that still means I think he's still in jeopardy of dying no matter what he does here, unless he's figured out some crafty way around it.
I mean, even just the weapon plus the hero power plus any additional damage is going to be enough to finish Control off. We see a little bit of a smile on his face, looking over his opponent. I think he knows his ride here is just about over. The one buff he can trade.
Yeah, you know, if he plays the Arcanine, he can't even heal.
Right, exactly. That's one of the huge threats here. And that is 6 from the Death Spite, 2 more from Steady Shot, just 1 life left for Control. Yeah, there is nothing that Control can draw here. Zombie Chow will not do it.
It is finished.
All right, well, there you have it. Alb987 will be your Wild Open champion, taking the series 3-1. As looks like the European player once again comes out on top, and I'm sure that all the continent's going to rejoice over that. The man from Italy, the owner of a bar, is his wife watching from home. Can